Welcome to InnoVIS, a podcast about visas. The purpose of this podcast is to shed some light on one of the most confusing aspects of globalization. Each episode, we look at one country's current visa guidelines for working and studying and some information on the expat and migrant demographics and the history of the place. I'm your host, Eleanor Shafe Chin. By now, you know that you should not be asking my advice on anything very important. Check all the official embassy websites close to the time of your departure and ask detailed questions of your in country partners. Last time, I said I wanted to talk about Mexico, but the visa website was too complicated in its simplicity, so I will save Mexico for another time. Today, we'll talk about Japan. Today's information comes from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website, and statistics come from the OECD online library. I also consulted some news articles from the Center for Strategic and International Affairs, as well as foreignpolicy.com. I'll put all my source links in the show notes. Last time, when I made consolidated links, it didn't work, so I'm very sorry about that. I'll try again this time, not consolidate them, and I'll put the ones from last week there too. Now, let's get into it. People write their PhD theses on Japanese migration history, so I'm hoping not to jump into that rabbit hole here. But a few key points that are helpful to know are that Japan has historically and to this day stereotypically had an ambivalent or negative attitude toward immigration inflow in general, and the country has most recently experienced a wave of immigration based on this new visa policy, and there has not been any backlash about it, contrary to what polling suggested. In April 2019, Tokyo implemented historic immigration reform, expanding visa programs to allow more than 345,000 new workers to immigrate to Japan over subsequent 5 years. Low skilled workers will be able to reside in Japan for 5 years, while foreign workers with specialized skills will be able to stay indefinitely, along with their family members, suggesting that many of these workers might stay for good. The backlash was not nearly to the level as polls would have suggested, and foreign policy writer Martin Galen concludes that Japan has become an outlier in global politics, showing that increased immigration is possible without mass backlash. Now, let's talk about paperwork. Japan offers 7 kinds of visas, and similar to France, there are multiple subcategories for each one. We're only going to talk about the work visa, startup visa, general visa for students, and the designated activity internship visa. Starting with the work visa, there are 16 specific categories, but all require the same paperwork. You'll need to submit your passport as well as one visa application form, one photograph, and a certificate of eligibility. The certificate of eligibility, you will need the original and one copy. It is unique, so it's the most important part. A certificate of eligibility is issued by a regional immigration authority under the jurisdiction of the Immigration Services Agency of Japan, certifying that you will be conforming to the conditions for landing in Japan, meaning the activity stated in the application is not false, and that it is sanctioned by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. To get a certificate of eligibility, your Japan country partner will need to consult the Regional Immigration Bureau. This paper and this process needs to happen in Japan, similar to the forms that begin with the number 15 in France. Now, speaking specifically to the work visa for professors, artists, religious professionals, journalists, business managers, legal and accounting services, medical services, researchers, instructors, engineers, specialists in humanities and international services, nursing care, or skilled labor, any of these visas can be issued for 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, 4 months for business managers, or 3 months. For the remaining 3 kinds of work visas, including entertainment, specific skilled workers, and technical training interns, the lengths of stay vary. For entertaining visas, your time cutoffs are at 3 years, 1 year, 6 months, 3 months, or 15 days. Under specific skilled worker visa categories, there are two types and they have different length of stay allotments. For type 1, the cutoff time is 1 year, or 6 months, or 4 months. For the second type, cutoffs are 3 years, 1 year, or 6 months. For specific skilled workers, the certificate of eligibility is doubly important. Without it, you need to submit an entirely different dossier with files that change based on your country of origin and your personal work history. Without the certificate of eligibility, the process of obtaining a visa could quite realistically take an indefinite period of time, as the second dossier would need to pass through the Japanese Ministry of Justice. Finally, for a technical intern training, the length of stay can be 1 year, 6 months, or a designated period of less than 1 year. Okay, let's hit the student visa. This is going to be under the category of the general visa, and for that, you can get visas to do flower arranging or study the tea ceremony. But today, we're only going to talk about if you're going to Japan to stay. The lengths of stay are very specific when you get a student visa. 4 years and 3 months, 4 years, 3 years and 3 months, 3 years, 2 years and 3 months, 2 years, 1 year and 3 months, 1 year, 6 months, and 3 months. Aside from this, it's the same visa application form, and you'll still need the certificate of eligibility. For a student visa, your school should provide this document. And now for the startup visa. This visa is quite complicated. You're going to need more than the application form and certificate of eligibility, despite what the website says. In June of 2018, the Ministry of Economics, Trade, and Industry presented a new program for entrepreneurs that provided incentive for Japanese municipalities to do projects that encourage entrepreneurs to start businesses. Now, because I don't understand all the steps or forms involved with this new procedure, I will save this very interesting rabbit hole for another episode. Finally, there is the designated activity visa, which is quite similar to the miscellaneous visa in Singapore and the catch-all talent visa in France. This is the kind of visa you get if you want to intern in Japan. The process is the same as the work visa, and the cutoff time lengths are 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, 6 months, 3 months, or a designated period of time less than 5 years. Although I don't know anyone who would want to be on intern status for an entire 5 years. And now for demographic statistics. In 2017, Japan received 99,000 new immigrants on a long-term or permanent basis, including changes of status, 4.3% more than in 2016. This figure comprises 53.5% labor migrants, 30.1% family members, 0.1% humanitarian migrants, and 16% other migrants. Around 123,000 permits were issued to tertiary level international students and 218,000 to temporary and seasonal labor migrants and trainees. China, Vietnam, and the Philippines were the top 3 nationalities of newcomers in 2017. Among the top 15 countries of origin, Vietnam registered the biggest increase, with 21,000 new migrants. Now, before I call it a wrap, I will give the Ministry of Foreign Affairs website a 3 in user-friendliness. The paperwork procedure itself wouldn't be bad, but understanding this bloody website is 75% of the problem. I also recommend you check out the National Immigration website to get a better sense of what secondary paperwork might be required for you, depending on your nationality, as well as use this website to understand your certificate of eligibility. And that website, I'm very sorry to say, gets a 2. That's all for today. Bye.